guys, welcome back to another episode of the Millennial Business Podcast. I am so excited to be joined today by my good friend Ryan Jon, who I used to work with at the radio station here in Canberra, and he has now gone on to bigger and better things. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having me, but nothing will ever be bigger and better than working with Taylor, so just know that for a fact.
Oh, I'm going to cut that out and make it a social snippet for sure. That's like the best opening line anyone has ever had to the podcast. So thank you for that.
Well,
so what sort of stuff, like you said, you're doing a lot of like content creation, podcasts, all that sort of stuff, freelancing now, for helping other people and doing it for your own brand as well. What sort of things are you actually doing at the moment?
So at the moment, I host a TV show in the afternoons on Ticker TV, which is like a business network. It itself is a startup, so it only just started at the start of this year, and it's about it's sort of made for people like you and I guess. It's made for young people, business-minded people, creative people, because Aaron, the founder, was sort of, you know, you look at the Today Show on Sunrise and it just seems like these old boomers just talking about nothing, and then when you think about business news, it's always these 60-year-old white guys talking about, you know, the oil price in Saudi Arabia, which I'm sure is interesting to someone, but all of a sudden people are running their own businesses. They want to be inspired and there's actually nothing for them. So the idea of Ticker is to be that thing.
Yeah.
So I do a show on that every afternoon. And again, I'm a freelancer. I produce and host a show and then I leave. I produce She's on the Money, which is a really great personal finance podcast. It's the #1 money podcast in Australia. So I really recommend checking it out. We've got 70,000 people in a community on Facebook.
Wow.
So there is no such thing as a question you have that someone in that group will not have the answer to. So if you want to know the best credit card or how to get rid of your credit card debt or who's got the best health insurance or the best saving hacks, put it in the group and you'll have 100 answers within 5 minutes. The community of She's on the Money is awesome. So I'm a part of that with Victoria Devine, and we've got a couple of projects coming up. And then myself, I make a lot of YouTube videos and I guess just Facebook and Instagram content for myself and for brands. And the beauty of working for Victoria on She's on the Money and at Ticker is, you know, the stuff I do on TV, I can, you know, take the grab of that and edit it up and make an Instagram version or this and that. So even though sometimes it feels like I'm doing these 3 different things, I just see it more as I hate to use like the funnel word because, you know, we use that all the time in marketing, but it feels like all the content kind of trickles down and just becomes what I do, if that makes sense, instead of it being multiple projects.
Your brand. Yeah, it's your own personal brand because you're doing all of these things. It's like me, like with this podcast, and I have my YouTube channel, like, and I edit it all with to go on my social media. It's all a part of like your overall brand.
Congratulations on the new like specifically on the branding. It looks great, by the way. The new logo, I've seen that pop up on Insta. It looks cool.
Thank you. That makes me so happy because I did a whole new like rebrand of all my stuff with my graphic designer. So that makes me very happy. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I just did. So, it's interesting because you've obviously done the same thing, but working in radio, we often have like a producer. And when I worked in Perth, we had like 10 people and like a video guy and a this and a that.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest things that's just changed my world is I just taught myself to do it myself. Because when you're not reliant on others, you're just so much more free to go about it. And even you want a new graphic, so you work with your graphic designer and do it. You don't have to like get approval and wait till the next budget. Or if you've just got an idea, you can go, hey, what if we just add this? And they can just jump on and do it. And being a bit more in control is great. And so a lot of people finish in radio and they go, what do I do? Like from the outside, it seems hosting a radio show, the transferable skills are very limited. But I don't know if you remember, like I used to edit a lot of the audio of the show. I taught myself how to edit video. So when I finished up, I was quite useful to a lot of people because I knew how to do stuff. So I'd actually, like, as much as it's great to get a lot of help, and I still get a lot of help, learning how to do it yourself, or at least know enough so you can have a conversation with your graphic designer. So I know enough about editing that I can sit with a pro editor and actually have a conversation about the edit, if that makes sense. Whereas if you're just going to go in there and go, oh yeah, whatever, man, like it's harder. And so I don't know, that's worked out really well for me.
Yeah. And I think that's so important, especially as a business owner. And a lot of people listening to this show are business owners. It's very important in all of the areas of your business that you at least have a basic understanding of what you need to do so that you can tell if someone's stuffing something up or tell them like, okay, this shouldn't be done like this, it should be done like this. I think that's something super important. And some people sort of forget about that. When they outsource it, they just like let the person go and do their own thing, which you can if you want. But I think it's so important if you really want to have a good solid foundation for your business to actually have the understanding of everything.
Yeah. So Mia Friedman, creator of Mamma Mia, huge, like that just started as a blog and is a huge multi-million-dollar business now, like unbelievable what she's created. And she sent a note out the other day talking about building a website and how at the start she got someone to build this website for her. And she says, if I had my time again, I would have just taught myself how to do it, because suddenly you've got the power back. Because if there was a little problem or she wanted to upload a new article, she had to call the web guy and he might be busy doing something for another client on, maybe on Sunday. Whereas just having the ability to log in and take care of stuff or make some adjustments, she's like, it's actually a game changer, and it's quite empowering that you can just be in charge of what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to move the conversation a little bit now more towards content creation, because you obviously, we've just mentioned you have these 3 different streams that you're doing your content creation with, but you've also created a lot of pieces of content that have gone pretty viral on Facebook, on all the different platforms.
Yeah.
Is there any formula that you have figured out that sort of works well for a piece of content to make it go viral? Is there any tricks and strategies that you could give us?
I never talk about like a formula that works, because you can use the formula and it might not work, or you can not use the formula and it goes off. But what I would say is that there are things you can do to give yourself the best chance, if that makes sense. So it's not like a guaranteed success, but if you do these things consistently over time, it can help. And first of all, like if you wanted to go viral per se, the way it goes viral is if people share it or if people comment on it. And so it seems really simple, but when you're like thinking about what to do, just think about like, why would someone actually comment on this and why would they share it? If there's not a good reason, if you can't answer that question, then you can't just expect it to go great. And it's usually about adding I actually was going to do a workshop on this with the team yesterday, so it's sort of fresh in my mind. But you think about like, what's the value that you're adding? So a value could just be purely entertainment. This is really funny. And if I share it with my friends, then I feel like I'm the funny person bringing this funny thing to them. Like, so I'm sharing the value of entertainment. Another value is just like information. And that's why like the word hack has become a bit cliche, but that's why a lot of little hack videos and hack articles and little tips and tricks go viral, because it's informative and it's actually valuable. Like it's, I didn't know how to do that, and now I know how to do that. This is really valuable, and I bet my friends would love to know about this trick as well. Another thing is just knowledge, like sometimes, which is knowledge is like true crime. You didn't know about something and it's fascinating to learn about it. And so they're the kind of values you can give. So then in terms of content, and you'd be great, and you're a great example of this, is if there's no reason to comment, people won't comment. So you ask them a question, ask them, do they agree or disagree, or tell them to give an example. Because it's one thing, like, and I literally had this conversation with a media company yesterday. They're like, we're not getting many comments. And I'm like, what do they answer? Like, what's to say? Like, what's there to add? If you're not asking them a question, and it feels a bit murky at first, but every YouTuber, watch it, they say, subscribe here, tell me in the comments. Like if you don't ask, you don't get. So I think just in terms of a formula, just, what value are you actually giving? Have that in mind. And second is, how are they going to engage, and tell them to engage. So they're 2 good tricks. And then I guess video is like, we're all scrolling. If you don't get their attention pretty quickly, it doesn't matter. And I've said to a few companies that I consult with, I'm like, the great bit of your video is at the minute 20 mark. And if you think someone's going to hang around for a minute 20 just to see what happens, like they're not. Like just think about how you use your phone. Like you just got to get their attention straight away. So
2 seconds, I think.
Something like that. So like I said, that formula won't guarantee success, but like I said before, I feel like it just gives you the best chance. Something great up front. Think about what you're actually giving, and then think about how people can engage with it. I think that's a good place to start, I reckon.
And I think it also,
if I see a viral video of mine or yours or anyone's, with that in mind, you can probably look at it and go, oh, okay, great. The value they're adding is this. And the reason people would want to engagement is that you can kind of see it, even if the people who made it didn't realize it.
Yeah.
You can kind of figure that out.
Yeah. I think it's a great way also to sort of reverse engineer it and think, okay, before you've even started the video, actually think about the intention and what you want to do behind the video, because a lot of people are just creating content not thinking about that and not thinking about the value that it provides to the audience. I think I think everyone's comments and stuff are going down, especially on Instagram at the moment. Like mine are just dwindling away. It makes me very sad. So we have to be like upping the game. We have to be providing more value and actually engaging people and asking questions that are going to make people want to answer, because if they're not engaging enough or if they're not pressing questions that people actually want to be a part of a conversation about, then you're going to get no comments.
So I did a like I said, I was doing this workshop yesterday, and I'll just give it to you guys for free. But when I say that, it's sort of common sense. I said to this company to think about their audience. And I don't know if you remember this, in radio, we had like some fake person that was like a 31-year-old female that had 2 kids and worked part-time. And it was and that was our like audience persona. And then we'd kind of think, like, what do they give a shit about? Like, what TV shows do they watch? What are they thinking? What kind of car do they drive? What money concerns might they have? They're just a fictional person. But if you think of your audience as a person and just write a list of their concerns or conundrums, and then if you think, oh, we can actually answer some of these conundrums and talk about some of the things they're uncertain about, that's a really good place to add value, because you're thinking, these people have these kind of problems, so I'm going to give them those kind of answers. And I think, especially for businesses who are in niches, if you just think, well, who is the person in my niche? What do they actually want and need? And how can I help them out? I mean, it sounds like you're an angel, and you are, because you're helping them, but also like that's how to engage with the audience, is make something that is of value to them. Like, do it for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I think that's so important, knowing who your target market is. And a lot of people who are starting out sort of think, oh, I want to help everyone. Like, I don't want to be too specific, because then if a client comes to me, then I can't help them if I've niched down into this area. Well, no, you can still help anyone you want that comes to you. But if you get really specific with who you're helping, you will attract those people, and then it'll be so much easier for you to create content that will get them engaged and get them noticing the content, because you're actually speaking to them versus just trying to talk to everyone at the same time, and then you're really talking to no one.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I personally have struggled with and still do struggle with, because I mean, we used to work in broadcasting, which by definition is broad. Every morning you're like, oh, cool, we're going to give you some news and also a little bit of music, and then we're going to do a little fun game, but we're also going to, and you like, that's sort of why radio struggles, is because it's trying to just do enough to appease anyone, and it ends up really appeasing no one. And that's, like I said, for me has been a struggle, is because I've got audience from different places, and I think, oh, but if I'm serving these guys, that means I'm ignoring them. But if I try to make something for both, it becomes nothing. And as I move from broadcasting into digital, like I said, you kind of got to be quite disciplined, and I'm still trying to get my head around that, to just serve your core audience. And because we didn't mention before, but like one of the bigger videos I've done, and I think you were around then, was when I was talking about being adopted. And so still I'll do a video about something to do with business, and I met this business owner, and people will be like, cool, have you found your mom? And you're like, oh no, like, because I've got this audience that cares about my family story and might not give a shit about my work. But I'm like, but I want to talk about my work. And that's the danger of doing stuff everywhere, is that your audience is also everywhere. So you can't please them all. So you're better off pleasing some people than just sort of not pleasing lots of people.
For sure. Well, and I did it recently. Like probably last year, actually, I was focusing a little bit more, the content I was making was a little bit more business focused. And now I'm moving more into sort of mindset, personal development, a little bit like spiritual. And I'm getting a lot of people, especially on Instagram, that are actually unfollowing me. But I'm also gaining followers every day who I know are now in alignment with the things that I want to be talking about. I don't necessarily just want to be focusing on business anymore, because it lights me up a lot more to talk about mindset and personal development and all of that sort of stuff. So I don't mind if I'm losing those followers, because the new ones that I'm getting are in alignment with what I actually want to be talking about and what I want to be producing. So I understand your struggle.
Yeah. Well, but I think just like understanding and just accepting what you just said is the battle, is that as soon as you say, and this is not my quote, I think it's from like Seth Godin. He says, like, once you accept that what you make is not for everyone, then you're ready to create. And because, have you heard of the 1,000 True Fans? I think it was Kevin Kelly wrote a book called 1,000 True Fans. Well, his thesis, I guess, is that you only really need 1,000 true fans of what you do to make a living. Like, if you do it right, 1,000 true fans. And I guess the point is, there's not 1,000 true fans that will each year, buy your book, subscribe, do whatever it is, come and see you at a workshop. 1,000 of them is more value than having 1 million people that are like, oh yeah, Taylor's all right. Like, she's cool, I follow her, but whatever. Like, and then 1,000 true fans will get the job done.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would love to move the conversation now into a little bit. You mentioned before you've been working a lot with brands, especially like through your TV show, through the She's on the Money podcast.
Yep.
Could you talk a little bit about how, if someone's looking at potentially getting a brand collaboration for maybe something they're doing on Instagram or something, their podcast, for example, what are some steps that people can take? Because it could, well, for example, for me, for my podcast, maybe one day I'm going to want to get a sponsor for the show once I get more listeners. I would have no idea I probably would just send out some emails and be like, hey, is this something you guys would be interested in? Like, is that the right way to go about it? Or how do you go about it?
Well, first of all, I think people start thinking about monetizing way too soon.
Yeah.
If you haven't done 50 episodes and gotten 50,000 views, whichever one, just worry about that first, because it's hard to give value without that. And even and what I've learned, even with bigger brands and big names, like household names that I've worked with in producing, it's hard to sell something that doesn't exist. So the best way to sell it is just to get it out there and get it happening. Having said that, it's still about what value you can give to the advertiser. Because just saying, I've got these numbers and I'd like some money, please, that's what you want. And that's fine to want that, but they don't really care. It's sort of what's in it for them. And this crazy example, when I was in Western Australia, there was this guy who did a podcast that had about 70 listeners a week. That was it. And it was about this really specific thing in finance. So it wasn't just about finance. It was about it was a podcast about how to use this particular technique to manage funds, whatever.
Okay.
And only 70 people listened to it. But one of those 70 each month would sign up and was like a $25,000 a month client for this advertiser. So they said, look, if you sponsor this, only 70 people are going to listen, but those 70 people are all managing $10 million funds and are looking to spend on this sort of technology. Again, I don't exactly know what it is, but because it was so concentrated and so valuable and now so lucrative, that's what was in it for the advertiser. Gotcha. So then you just got to think about the type of people. So say, for instance, the podcast, like you said, if it's moving more into like mindset and spirituality, if there's an app that's, has meditations or does stuff that's in your group, and you say, hey, I've got 20,000 people that love talking about mindset, that are looking to improve themselves, and your product that you're selling, your app, is going to help them do that. Of the 50,000 people, that's 50,000 potential customers for you. So I think you guys coming on board is a great opportunity to, instead of you going and finding your audience, they're here. I've got them. And that's why it's going to be valuable for them. So that's sort of one way to look at it from the kind of the value point of view. And then the second point of view is just actually how you do it. And as we've seen a lot of in the last 5 years, there's a lot of affiliate stuff, which is awesome because it's low risk for the advertiser, because if no one buys the product, it doesn't really cost them any money. And I actually think it's a really honest, valuable way to do it. Because if you say, I've got 50,000 people who are into improving their mindset, and you've got an app that's going to help them do it, well, let's test if Taylor's being honest or if her audience is as true as she says it is. Because if 500 people sign up, then you're right, it works. They get 500 new customers. You might get, $10 kickback from each one.
Yeah.
Everyone's a winner. And if they aren't the people who are going to buy, then there wasn't the right advertiser. And so it kind of proves that, if they had said no, they might've been right.
Yeah.
So I think if you kind of go in saying, here's what I can do for you, Mr. Advertiser, and just saying, I've got numbers, your numbers about what? What are they into? Are they numbers who are going to buy my thing, or they're just numbers?
Yeah. And what sort of numbers do you think, where would be a starting point for someone? Like, what would they need to reach before you think they could start reaching out to brands?
Well, again, it's hard to say because that podcast had 70 listeners and it was extremely valuable. And it just depends. It's sort of, if you reverse engineer it, like if you give me an example brand, just throw one at me.
Oh gosh, no, I'm not a brand.
Let's go Airbnb.
Okay,
right?
yeah, fine.
All right. Ryan and Taylor are starting their travel podcast. And it's all for Airbnb. So if we say to Airbnb, all right, if you give us $1,000 per episode, how many bookings do you need to get to justify that? And they go, oh, well, if we give you 1,000, we would need 20 people to sign up because we make $50 per booking. So then we go, okay, so you just need 20 people to book per episode and you've broken even. So from the 21st, we're talking profit now.
Yeah.
So then you kind of go, well, you know what? We've got 5,000 travelers an episode, and I'm willing to bet that of the 5,000 listeners, we're going to get those 20 and more. And let's try it out for a month. Let's do 4 episodes for a month, and let's test it. And if you give us 1,000 and you make 1,200 back, that's advertising well spent.
Yeah.
And so if you sort of break it down to and that's what businesses do. They think, well, if I spend this much on advertising, how much am I going to get back? And so that's their language, talking their language.
Yeah.
And if we say, hey, we reckon we can get 1,000 bookings per episode, and we know that a booking earns you about $20, we're going to take 20 grand an episode and we're both winning. Cool.
Yeah.
So it sounds a bit nerdy and a bit maths and a bit numbers, but I think a lot of in most things really, they kind of talk about themselves and not about, people don't care about anyone else except themselves. So talk about them. And side note, that's the same if you ask for a pay rise. A lot of people will go in and say, my rent's up and my car is broken down. I need more money. But what you should say is, I'm earning you this much more money because I'm doing such a great job. And if you pay me extra, that will allow me to do this extra thing. So that extra 10 grand that you pay me, you're going to get 30,000 back.
Yeah.
Oh, great. It's costing me money not to give you a pay rise.
Yeah.
Versus I want a new car, pay me more. They don't care about your car.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't think so. Yeah, I literally was writing a website copy for a client last night rewriting it, sorry. And the current copy that they had was all about them. They're a multi-award winning mortgage broker and they can do this and they're experts and they do this and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, if I was a client reading this or a customer, they're not talking about what value they actually provide for the customer. They're just talking about themselves and how great they are and how many awards they've won and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no one cares.
But that's not how you should do it in anything that you're creating, in your content, in your website, in trying to get a pay rise, anything. Talk about the value that you're providing for the other person. And that's really how you're going to get across to them, because everyone is just wanting to, it sounds bad, but everyone wants to get things for themselves.
100%. I did something similar with it was an accounting firm that just did personal taxes. It wasn't H&R Block, but one of those kind of companies. Yeah. And they were the same. They're we've won awards. We've got this many offices. And then I thought, if I'm talking with my friends about tax, what am I talking about? And it's always oh, how much did you get back? I got back this much. Oh, I got back this much. People just care about how much money they get back. So don't make an ad telling me that you're winning awards. Just make an ad going, oh, we're going to get you heaps of money back. We're going to do our best to get you as much as we can. Okay, that's what I want. So that's okay.
Yeah. I would click on that ad for sure.
Yeah.
Everyone wants money back.
Yeah. And it just says, so I'm tell them what they want. Don't tell them what you want to tell them. Yeah, it seems simple, and I feel like it's condescending saying that, but it's surprising how often it's not the case.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's sort of been an overall theme of this episode a little bit, is looking at reverse engineering things with your content, with your working with the brands, with anything that you're trying to create or do or get or whatever it is. Reverse engineer it. Look at the outcome that you would like. Work backwards as to how you can get there, what value you need to provide, explaining to people what you can do for them, how you're going to provide them more value, whatever it is. Reverse engineer it, and it's the easiest way to do it. So, yeah.
I've done that a lot. And when, like, even in previous lives, I always, like, I'm a nerd for Wikipedia, because when there's someone who's doing stuff that I'm like, oh, I'd love to be doing similar projects to that, I always go on their Wikipedia page and see what they used to do. Yeah. So you can kind of see the steps they took to get there. And there was a time, like when I was working in finance, I don't know anymore, but I could have told you every CEO of every Australian bank, what they did before they were CEO, if they've got a master's degree, where their first job was. And then you kind of see a pattern, because if that's what you want to do, you kind of go, oh, okay, well, they come from this area, so how do I get to that area? Oh, well, people in this area come from here. And you can kind of, it doesn't always work, but it just gives you a bit of something to aim for, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and it's in when you're trying to run a business as well. Like, look at the people that are running a business the way that you want to be running a business, and look at what programs they're creating or what they're selling or what they're doing to be able to get to that point, and then map out how you can get there, and then just take small daily action every single day, working towards those goals as to how you can get there. And then that's how you're going to achieve your business goals. So
100%. And if you do it in little steps, as you know, it's a lot easier to break it into little parts and just get to that next bit, because it's not as daunting as how does a uni student become CEO of National Australia Bank? It seems like a difficult task.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for joining me on the episode today. I've loved it because we've talked about topics that we haven't actually talked about before. Guys, listening, I hope you've found a lot of value. We've talked about content creation and how to make viral content, and getting gigs with brands, which is something no one has ever discussed before. So thank you so much for joining me on the show.
You are welcome. And follow me on Instagram and leave me a message or a DM saying, I heard you on Taylor's podcast. Because that's my check and receipts of how many people are tuning in. So we got to test it out.
Well,
if there's a lot of people, then I'll consider advertising. I'll consider advertising a lot.
What's your Instagram?
Ryan.Jon, just Jon.
Yeah.
And right. Someone's got Ryan Jon without the dot and never posts, and it's so annoying. And I've DM'd them and like, hey mate, can I send you a couple of bottles of wine if I can have my name? And they just don't reply, and it's so annoying. So it's Ryan.Jon on Instagram.
Yeah. Mine's Taylor.Victoria with 2 A's at the end. The one with 1 A was taken, and also they don't post very often. I'm like, come on.
It's so annoying. But yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Good to catch up.
You're welcome. All right, guys, until the next episode, I'll see you later. Bye.